Happy Monday and happy month of June here on NewsWire. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here. Hope you had a nice weekend. We found out who the NBA Finals will be featuring, and we know now it will be the San Antonio Spurs and New York Knicks. We'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do that, let's break down what we have for you here on today's show. Kyle Soppe will be with us for the latest in the NBA and give you an early look at the finals. We have to wait till Wednesday. Pat Evans is in the house from Legal Sports Reports, so the very latest on sports wagering and prediction markets going on across the country. And yes, I think that is Kevin Walsh. He's drinking some coffee there. It looks like it's Kevin Walsh wearing a backwards hat with a coffee mug. He's probably drinking coffee right now to stay up because he'll be on like 7 more shows today. So we'll have Kevin Walsh coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's get to the big story from the weekend. Big surprise. The San Antonio Spurs, who dominated the regular season over the Oklahoma City Thunder, prove it was no fluke. They win on Saturday night, 111-103. So they do cover and, of course, capture the point total there, plus 3.5. So that's a money line win for you as well. Wasn't a crazy game, by the way, for Wemby, just 22-7. And Julian Champagne had 20 points. Now, SGA did have 35 points and 9 assists, but basically the Thunder's defense really failed them in the second half of this game. Here's De'Aaron Fox on a preview of the finals.
When you see the NBA Finals, what do you picture?
Why not picture us holding the trophy at the end? But, just thinking of everything that goes into it, just the blood, sweat, the tears, the travel, everything that we go through throughout the course of the regular season, and then adding another 30 games, like that does a lot to your body. But I think we're built for it. I think we're prepared for it.
All right, so game one is Wednesday night of the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals begin tomorrow. So we'll have previews of all of the games in the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals as they basically play every other night. But here is the opening line for game one. The Spurs will host the Knicks, and they're 4.5-point favorites. You see the total there, 218.5. Most believe that some money will come in on the Knicks. This could be 4 before they tip off Wednesday night in Texas. All right, now let's get to some baseball for the weekend. What a great month it was for Jacob Misiorowski. It's going to be a tough call for pitcher of the month of May because Misiorowski threw 7 more shutout innings. So it's basically him and Christopher Sanchez who have been incredible. Brewers shut out the Astros 2-0. The Miz was 5-0, 57 strikeouts and a .23 earned run average. But the problem was Sanchez didn't give up a run in May. How about that? Both guys back to back. Here is the Miz saying he had a decent month of May. Is he kidding?
You just finished a pretty impressive month. How would you describe the month you had?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I haven't looked at all the numbers and such, so I couldn't tell you exactly what I did. But it felt good. It felt like a pretty decent month.
It's probably one of those things that we look at, you don't think of this season in terms of blocks of months.
Exactly. That's what, you're trying to go home 162 games or whatever, 30 starts I have. So, a span of 6, however many it would be in a month. I don't really look at it that way. You're kind of just looking at the whole season, trying to figure it out.
How about if we told you your ERA was 0.23 for the month of May? Does that change your opinion at all?
That's decent. Yeah, that's pretty good. But no, again, I can't look at it, can't really focus on that because as soon as you do, it goes haywire.
Yeah.
Probably going to see Misiorowski in the All-Star game again, maybe even starting the game. I guess we'll see. All right, hey, Baltimore Orioles with a nice weekend again, so they cap off their homestand 7-3. Impressive stuff to jump back in the race. They beat the Blue Jays 9-5. Kyle Bradish picked up the win. Homers from Colton Cowser and Pete Alonso in the key victory. Solid homestand, says manager Craig Albernaz.
It was a good homestand. Boys played well. They competed. Great at-bats. Defense was awesome. Base running. It was just we were playing the baseball that we're capable of. Just all the work that these guys have been putting in relentlessly every day. We're starting to see the rewards now, and against some really good teams, it's been fun to watch, and especially with the starting pitching. The starting pitching has really taken a step forward, and it's been awesome.
Guess who else is hot? Los Angeles Dodgers. That shouldn't be a surprise. 9-1. They took care of the Phillies. They were big favorites here, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto struck out 10 in 5 1/3. Muncy and Freeland homered in the game. Here's Dave Roberts after with another big win for LA.
5 series in a row. Is this the consistency that you expect out of this group now?
Yeah. You're going to get beat at times. It's going to happen, but I do think with the talent that we have, if we, focus and play like we're capable of, we should win series, regardless home, road. So this next one's going to be a good one. Diamondbacks always play us tough, and so play at their place is always difficult. So this is going to be a fun series coming up.
A rare series win these days for the Boston Red Sox. There haven't been many this season, but they beat the Cleveland Guardians 9-4. They were down 4-3 in the seventh. They came back to win, and so interim manager Chad Tracy at least has this series to be happy about.
Your overall thoughts on the weekend, winning a rubber game, which you guys hadn't done I guess in your tenure?
Yeah, losing the first game and you're kind of up against it on the road, and come back and win the game yesterday, and then at one point be trailing late today and fight back and put a big number up there and win a series. Now you have an off day and you're going home. So that's a big win today, but a big couple wins to finish this thing off.
Also a big win for the Pirates as they sweep the seemingly fast-falling Twins. 9-3, Pirates win as home favorites. Starting pitching has been incredible for Pittsburgh. Brandon Ashcraft yesterday struck out 11 in 6 innings. Braxton Ashcraft, he has been fantastic. Here is Ashcraft after the game on what worked for him.
Kind of my MO is just staying in the zone, suffocating the zone with strikes. I put a lot of trust in Henry, Joey, Indy, whoever's back there, just to game plan, kind of understand what's going on with hitters, and it allows me to kind of turn my brain off and focus on the task at hand. That's throwing strikes, getting guys out in the zone. So being able to have the confidence in them back there, it's really nice.
By the way, the Pirates also placed pitcher Carmen Mlodzinski on the restricted list. He refuses to pitch for the Pirates. Kind of a bizarre story there. We'll tell it to you later. All right, now let's get back to some final scores. The Reds do win yesterday over the Atlanta Braves, but they may have a very critical injury to their starting lineup as Elly De La Cruz left in the 5th inning with a hamstring issue. Here's Terry Francona on that.
And on Elly, it was listed as tightness in the hamstring. Do you know the severity yet?
Yeah, and the reason they said that is he feels like he caught it before it did anything worse. Saying that, we're going to get him scanned at 9 in the morning, and we'll know more.
Tough injury for the Reds. All right, White Sox just keep winning, even without Murakami. In the 7th inning, they come back to win 2-1 and beat the Tigers. And yes, that's a sweep. The Tigers are in last place in the Central. How about that? Colson Montgomery homered. That was a key hit in the game, and here he is after the game on the rally.
Yeah, you've seen it all year. You've seen it in, big games, and, it doesn't matter. Division games are division games. These are the games that we want, and, these are the games we're not gonna stop. And I think we've shown all year that we're a team that, if they get ahead, that you can't just stop. We're gonna be, one at bat away, one guy away, and I credit, Chase getting on, Gonzo getting hit, and then, Peters, just doing what he does, puts the ball in play and creates havoc, and I just think that's what we do.
Sticking in the American League, we'll go to the East. The Yankees put 13 runs up in the 3rd and beat the A's 13-8. Ben Rice had 5 runs driven in. Juan Soto hit a grand slam. The Mets swept the Marlins over the weekend. That was tough for me. The Giants ended up scoring 19 runs on 25 hits in their win against the Colorado Rockies, so they win as slight road favorites and avoid being swept. It was Willy Adames who had a grand slam and 4 runs driven in, and Jung-Ho Lee had 5 hits in this game as the Giants' bats finally came alive. Coming up next, we'll pivot over to the NBA. Kyle Soppe will join us. We'll take a look at some early lines on what you can expect Wednesday night in the finals. We'll be back with more NewsWire right after this.
Hey there, it's your buddy Craig Carton. If you're trying to find out how to get all the great content that me and Tyrone Johnson give you every single day, here's Tyrone to tell you how.
You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube,
Spotify, and of course, Amazon Music as well. We're at all 4.
That's right. It's the Craig Carton Show podcast every weekday morning live at 11, replayed at noon on YouTube and on SportsGrid throughout the country. Check it out.
They're trading right now currently at 74 wins on the season, which means the Kalshi marketplace goes by 5-win intervals. 75-plus wins for those Houston Astros. That's a 49% contract to the yes, which a $100 investment pays back $205, Greg. I'm not high on this team. Look, again, 75 wins for the Astros is terrible, but this team might not even look the same as where we stand today by the time we get to that deadline.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Okay, so the NBA Finals is a little bit over 48 hours away. We have some time to take a deeper look at some of the props. There'll be a lot of bets available for this. So let's check in with Kyle Soppe, who joins us now for his thoughts on the upcoming NBA Finals. Kyle, great to have you here on the show. So, all right, this is a tight series, it would appear. We have the Spurs overall favored to win the series, but not by a lot. And we have the Spurs favored also in game 1 of the series. But let's start off with the series itself. You have San Antonio minus 205. You can get plus 172 on the Knicks. And Kyle, the reason why this is the case is simply one reason only. The Spurs have the home court. I think that this would be a dead even spread here, probably minus 115 on both sides or 110 if the Knicks had home court here. So what do you make of the series? Let's start there.
Well, I think they might be favored for 2 reasons. You've got home court and you've got that big number 1 guy protecting the bucket that's, the same size as him. So that definitely factors in here. I have the Spurs favored, but not by as much as I wanted to. I don't know how deep you are in the numbers and the spreadsheets and stuff, but I put all my numbers in and they came out light on the Spurs, even though I kind of like them to win every individual game. I'm not showing much value. I've got them favored by just over 2.5 points in game 1. So not really much value anywhere. I will lay the game and a half for the series here. I think they're going to have the advantage across the board. Everybody's playing up this big rest advantage that the Knicks have, and sure, they do, but the Spurs have 3 days off too. For a team that's been playing every other day for a month, 3 days has got to feel like an eternity. So I don't think they're exactly limping into this. They're the better team. I think they're just a better version of the Knicks. You've got a left-handed point guard, a big scoring big. To me, they're just a better version. I think it'll be a competitive series, but I'd be surprised if this goes the distance.
Okay, fair enough. So now let's take a look at the first game, which tells me everything that I need to know, that you're taking the Spurs if you only have them by 2.5, and the odds makers are saying 4.5 right now. Total of 218.5. The game will tip off 8:40 p.m. on Wednesday night. So if my math is right, and I'm not good at it, Kyle, you telling me 2.5, I see a 4.5 there. And by the way, I think that this line will be 4 by the time they tip off. I think there will be some pullback here on the Knicks.
I think you're probably right. And I think if you're a Spurs backer, you're smart to wait here. New York's obviously going to be a very public team. You see all the celebrities, all that good stuff. It'll be even worse when this thing goes to the Garden. But yeah, I think if you want the Spurs, you wait on it. I'm light on them, so I'm not touching the spread or the total in this one. I come in 2 points light on the total too, so I'm not going that direction. I'm living in the props market. That's where I'm going to attack this series until I get some distance. If this thing goes to New York and it's like a coin flip game, then we could be talking San Antonio. But until then, I'm going to wait and see what we've got in this series. in game one when it comes to totals and spreads.
All right, so now let's go to some of the bets that you like, and we'll hit on the prop market. And naturally, a lot of different options that don't normally present themselves during the regular season and maybe even in the playoffs. But you like, in particular, a lot of unders, and so I'd like your thoughts on that.
I do. I'm all in on the unders. I come in on the Knicks when it comes to, the spread and things like that. But Mitchell Robinson, under 3.5 points. I get that it's ugly. I get that it's not comfortable. We did this with Rudy Gobert a month ago. It is what it is. No big guy scores on the Spurs. It's really that simple. Mitchell Robinson, given his role last round, just over 13 minutes a game. If you want him to get to 4 points, he's going to have to score at above his season average on a per minute basis. You're telling me he's going to go above his per minute average against a generational defender with a broken pinky? Like, to me, that's a lot to ask. I understand that 3.5 points isn't a very big number. I don't think San Antonio goes hack-a-shack, so I don't think you have to sweat free throws there. My best bet in this game would be Mikal Bridges under a 1.5 3-pointers. I just don't see enough volume to realistically get there. If you're talking 2 made threes for an average to above average shooter, you want at least 5 attempts. He's only doing that once a series this postseason. I don't think you get much of that. I don't think the Karl Anthony Towns offense is going to really function quite the same way with Wemby guarding him, and that just doesn't leave open looks, and that's what Bridges is doing. He's shooting over 45% when the looks are wide open, under 30% when they're not. I think the latter comes to fruition here. You see like a 1 for 3 kind of day. Just not enough volume for Bridges to get there in this market.
All right, now let's go to the series bets, which you can put in, and certainly some head-to-heads that you like here as well with Anunoby. What do you make of some of these?
Yeah, Anunoby over Champagne when it comes to rebounds. He's just the better rebounder. We're getting minus 135, which is a pretty good price tag here for a guy that I think is critical to the success of the Knicks. Champagne, you could do without him. I'm not saying he's not valuable, but he's not the player that OG is. So if you're talking minutes downside in a market like this, to me, this is a pretty strong bet. It's not juiced too heavy. OG's average depth of rebound 2 feet closer to the rim, so that tells me that they want him rebounding, whereas that's really not the case with the Spurs. They're just kind of, you've got the big guy in the middle, and you're content to get rebounds elsewhere, so I'm not going that direction. If you're looking for upside, De'Aaron Fox to lead this thing in assists at 7-1 right now. Stephon Castle is a turnover waiting to happen, so there's that. With the Spurs being favored, I don't think they embrace the variance that comes with Castle, so I think it's Fox leading the show, and then Brunson's just going to be asked to score a ton for the Knicks, and those are the top 3 in this market. If I think Brunson's shooting and Castle's shooting, that leaves Fox to set. Everything else, I like him a lot here at 7-1.
Kyle, let's look at the MVP market. I'm trying to think here, and maybe I'm just a prisoner of the moment, as they say. Has there ever been a 7'3" or 4 guy to win the NBA Finals MVP? I mean, Wemby would be that at minus 180. I'm thinking back in the past to like Shaquille O'Neal and Kareem and like Dirk Nowitzki. Is it generally a guard or a forward? LeBron and some of those guys.
Yeah, especially in today's game, you see guard and wings guys that handle the ball. But Wemby kind of does that. I get that he's 7.5 feet tall, but he does a little bit of everything. And if you want the Spurs to win the series, to me, you take the 20-cent discount and take Wemby to win the MVP. I get that Castle's been amazing. I get that they have other options. Wemby's the MVP if they win this thing. That's just how this plays out. We saw it with Mahomes when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. He's going to win MVP. So take the 25-cent discount. Go Wemby MVP if you want the Spurs to win the series.
Great stuff, Kyle, on the NBA. He's going to return with us to hit some Major League Baseball. We've got a full slate tonight to get to, so we'll take care of that next on this Monday edition of NewsWire. So stay with us here on the grid. In addition, don't forget, we have coverage of all of your Stanley Cup hockey action tomorrow. Download the SportsGrid app. Make sure you're following us throughout the finals in both the NHL and the NBA. And as soon as those are over, folks, it's World Cup time. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The month of June means Major League Baseball. It's no longer early anymore. In fact, for a lot of teams, just over 100 games left. That means the halfway point is coming soon. Kyle Soppe is here with us. And Kyle, as we take a look at some of the games tonight, to me, the most shocking result of any of the first 60 games of the season, no question for me, is Detroit. I did not see them being one of the worst teams in all of baseball, if not the worst team in the American League. I believe 16 games under 500. Their season is over in June. Tonight they play the Rays. The Rays are minus 150. They have Griffin Jax, a converted reliever, starting. He's done a nice job for them. The total is 8. Why? Because Detroit can't score. And I don't know that Madden is going to be able to pitch his way through this, but certainly the idea here is that the Rays are, at least for the time being, not playing their very best baseball at the moment.
Like you said, Detroit hasn't looked good all year. If you told me 2 months ago we'd be fueling Scooble trade offers in early June here, I would have called you crazy. I don't know exactly what's wrong with Detroit other than everything seems broken right now. Tampa Bay, I think they're a sneaky AL champion kind of lurking here. The way they approach the game, and I think you see it tonight, it's just contact, put the ball in play, put pressure on the opponent, which may or may not work as you ramp up in the level of competition. But against a Detroit team that's struggling, give me Tampa Bay. I'm sorry. I'll take the home team in the first 5 innings here. You get a decent price to do so and fade a Detroit team that's, falling faster than we can handicap.
So if they're falling fast, what are the Royals? They've lost 6 in a row. They're out of it pretty much too here in June. They're on the road taking on the Reds. We'll see what happens with Ellie De La Cruz. I would imagine he's going to go on the IL, but that's a guess from me. They're minus 190. They've got their best pitcher on the mound in Chase Burns. Avila will start tonight for Kansas City. So certainly this is a huge favorite for Cincinnati. You're going to have to lay too much juice. Is there anything within this that you like?
Yeah, I think you can get a little creative. And DraftKings has these markets. Other books I'm sure do too, where you can take the home team. And I don't like laying a 1.5 for the home team. Maybe it's a quirky thing for me. But when you don't get the bottom of the 9th, you fall subject to these walk-offs and all that stuff. So I'm going the home team, and I've got 2 of these plays, Cincinnati and Minnesota today, to not bat in the bottom of the 9th inning. Basically, you just need to win the game outright, but not at the horn. And if I'm betting a team like a Chase Burns-led Reds team or Joe Ryan with the Twins, I'm not counting on this thing coming down to the wire. Whether you win a baseball game by 1 or 2 runs, like that's hit or miss. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But if I'm taking them to win, which I plan on doing, but like you said, the money line price is just a little too rich for my blood, you get about a 40 or 60 cent discount, depending on just how rich the market is, to take these teams to not bat in the 9th inning. And if I'm telling you they're going to win, I'm not banking on it coming down to the final swing. So I'm taking the Reds minus, it's about 140 range to not bat in the bottom of the 9th inning and just win this game outright under Chase Burns, who had a 1.19 ERA in the month of May. The dude is legit. And like you said, the Royals falling apart at the seams here. Not exactly a good get-right spot.
Yeah, 6 in a row have lost by them. Giants bats getting a little bit hotter. We saw Jung-Ho Lee with a few hits, Devers with a few hits yesterday as well. They take on the Brewers tonight, and the Brewers, it looks like, have Shane Drohan opening for them at home. They're minus 146. Landon Roop starts for San Francisco. Total 7.5. So if maybe there is a dog spot tonight, perhaps this could be it. But man, going against the Brewers is usually bad for your health. They tend to win even when they're not big favorites.
It is. I will go with the road dog here. As long as you don't have the Miz on the mound for Milwaukee, then you could at least talk me into this thing. That dude's amazing. I don't know what the league is going to do with him and the future of what he's doing at the position. He kind of feels like Wemby, but as a pitcher here. But give me San Fran here. I get that Raul Peasant didn't win a game. The Giants lost every start he made in May here, but he's pitching okay here. He's not walking a lot of guys, not giving up too many big flies. I think they can get it done here. I'll be honest with you. I've got this game borderline a coin flip. You give me the plus 126. I'll take it there, understanding the variance that comes with baseball, quite honestly.
Let's do Dodgers Diamondbacks here because Arizona tends to play LA pretty good, and Diamondbacks are having a pretty good season here too, but LA's always going to be minus 150 or more. I don't think you'll ever find a game this season where they're not. And Emmett Sheehan starts tonight. Eduardo Rodriguez for Arizona. I see Arizona plus 134 and a total of 9. Can Arizona take the opener tonight?
They can. You're just going to get me in a spot where I'm never betting against the Dodgers. There's days I won't bet on them for sure, but there's not a day I'm going to go and spend my hard-earned money backing a super Dodgers team looking for a repeat. So I'm not touching this one. If I had to, I'd be looking at unders here. We've got the Diamondbacks. They're iffy here. Eduardo Rodriguez has a high ceiling, but it's a pass for me.
Kyle, great to see you. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always good to catch up with my friend Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report for the very latest on sports betting and more. Pat is here with us. Great to have him here as we get the month of June off and sports betting to a good start here. Hey, a pretty nice story here. Pat, the state of Connecticut wanting to make sure that toll-free lines are correctly set up. Certainly, this is a very positive move in the world of sports betting, but a little bit of a wrinkle here as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, so Connecticut is one of those states that a lot of bills the last 2 years have been introduced, just kind of fine-tuning the sports betting markets and guardrails. And of course, you have the U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, who's one of the leading voices at a federal level to put better nationwide guardrails in. So Connecticut is just one of those states to kind of watch when you're seeing stuff. And yeah, Governor Ned Lamont signed 2 bills recently that, it requires sports betting operators to offer a toll-free support line rather than just like a chat bot or whatever is on there. So that is in there. It also adds a provision for to change the state's cheating laws, which kind of surprised me that there was a just cheating law. It apparently went into effect in 1995. And obviously sports betting was not legal back then. So they instituted that now, and that will go into effect later this year. And that, says that you can't cheat, you can't know results or affect anything. So that will go into the effect there. And then there was another bill that was to create a prediction market study, which everything is all the rage. Prediction markets are now. And of course, we've got multiple states fighting lawsuits against both the prediction markets and the federal CFTC, which regulates them federally. And this is just the state lottery, the tribes that are contracting for online casino and sports betting, and the state to say, hey, what is this doing to our market, and what can we do about it? And so that will probably come into effect next legislative session, where lawmakers can then say, okay, we'll see what to do. Now, I did a story recently before, a couple of months ago, that said, these state laws that are trying to limit or tax prediction markets do not matter until, the Supreme Court rules on it and gets all these state by state lawsuits out of the way. But at least these states are trying to get ahead of that. So yeah, just a lot of bills that have come into Connecticut to fine tune the market. And we see some of them get through, which might be kind of a hint to what other states might do in the future.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's get to a story that we covered last week on the surface a little bit with Sam McQuillan, which is this idea that Louisiana wants to protect their athletes more and stop, or at least deter, the harassment of athletes, Pat. But as I asked Sam, and I will ask you the same, is this something that's genuinely enforceable? It seems really hard to go to social media accounts and try and find who these people really are, and then fans yelling, you lost my parlay, things like that. How do they enforce this sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think that's something that the state regulators will have to work with both sports books and the athletes and teams themselves, and hearing from them what might be the issues. And this was a big issue, I think, a couple of years ago when the Dayton head basketball coach came out and said, hey, our players are getting bombarded with threats and all of this. The NCAA has come out in strong push for banning collegiate prop bets, which they believe will help protect player safety. Because if you can't guess that Jeremy Fears Jr., for my Spartan fans out there, I'm a Spartan, doesn't make these many assists, then you're not going to send him a dirty, a mean text or DM. So yeah, it is questionable on how you can enforce it. But yeah, this passed unanimously in the Louisiana legislature. And, so obviously they believe that there is some way to enforce it. And we'll see. I'm sure they'll do a good job of letting us know how many people they do end up punishing or things like that. Similarly, and I think this might kind of be a better way of understanding how they might enforce it, is there's a bill in process in New York that is similar, and it would prohibit bettors from having sports betting accounts from complaints that are criminally connected to threats to athletes, refs, coaches, the like. So I think if it's elevated to to law enforcement, that's when you can say, okay, we can enforce this, and you're not going to have a sports betting account. You're going to get fined, probably, maybe if it's severe enough, maybe some jail time, who's to say. So that's a huge factor there in Louisiana and New York potentially. And it does note, and now that you've asked this, maybe I'll do a little digging for you, and we can talk about it next week. Is Ohio banned harassing or has banned sports betting accounts for people who have been found to be guilty of this, and so has West Virginia. So I'll do some looking into that and see how many people they've enforced, and see how we can do that. And I'll do that just for you, Craig. But in Louisiana, I should also note, last year they unanimously banned sweepstakes casinos. The governor came back and vetoed that bill and said that the regulator has enforceable rights to that, and then they sent 40 cease and desist letters. This year the legislature returned and still weren't happy with the sweepstakes kind of laws on the books, so they went ahead and added it to the racketeering charges in Louisiana, and the governor signed that as well. So some big action in Louisiana in terms of governor signatures for those bills.
Something I never thought would ever come to pass. It's kind of happened occasionally with sports books and advertising. A guy gets hurt, and now you get your money back. I never thought that this would actually be a bill. I thought it was just a good promo for FanDuel and DraftKings and some of these other companies. If for example, your running back got hurt in the first quarter, or wide receiver, or even quarterback, we're going to void those bets. Made the bettor feel good. But actually going into a law, how is this possible?
Yeah, I mean, again, New York is one of those states that kind of leads the states in fine tuning the sports betting regulations and laws. And yeah, to your point, this is something that gets so much social media chatter, so much just general betting talk when you're with friends out at the bar or whatever. Is yeah, if you've got a bet on a running back to rush for 50 yards and he's hurt in the first quarter and well, then you're mad. You're getting mad at the sports book, and some sports books kind of set that precedent of here's your money back, kind of as a goodwill gesture, but. To me, it's like, well, you made that bet, and that's part of the game is an injury. So how does that work? But here in New York, you've got a bill being introduced that would, make sports books have a process to refund a bet if somebody's hurt or gets benched or what. I don't know if the benching is necessarily part of it, but would kind of regulate it and make a very firm process for it, so you're not left wondering, oh, this guy got hurt last time I bet on somebody and he got hurt, I got my money back. And you can see how that would be kind of inconsistent and kind of frustrating for bettors. So we'll see if this makes any sort of progress in New York, or if it does make it there, does it kind of make sports books do it nationwide, or do other states start to say, hey, that was a good idea, we'll do that just for consumer safety and satisfaction more than anything else. Also of note, there's a couple of other bills moving along in New York. One is to ban billboard ads. Anybody who's been in a state with legalized sports betting knows that as soon as it launches, those ads are everywhere. They're on the sides of buses, on the sides of the highways, what have you, and they want to kind of bring it back and say, no, you can't do that, kind of like cigarette ads and things like that. We've seen lots of markets kind of address how sports betting is advertised and trying to minimize the amount of ads that maybe people under 21 would see when it comes to sports betting. So we'll see if any of these get moved forward in New York. And of course, if they do, or even if they don't, we'll bring it back here and I'll talk to you about it at a later date.
And for sure, check out Pat over at LegalSportsReport.com for all of these topics and a whole lot more. Thanks again, Pat, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks as always, Craig.
All right, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. All right, guess who's back in New York? Odell Beckham Jr. signing a 1-year contract. Are you kidding me? This guy has not been relevant in years, and somehow reports are he's a main target on the Giants. What are we doing here? I think I'll have better information coming from Kevin Walsh on the NBA Finals next. Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. We got Kevin Walsh in the house. Going to be a very busy week for Kevin because we've got the Stanley Cup on Tuesday, the NBA Finals on Wednesday, and then it's every other day until we get to the World Cup. So Kevin's going to take a deep breath tonight with some Major League Baseball, and then tomorrow, and then it's all set to go. Kevin, great to see you. Happy Monday to you here on the show. All right, so what was your takeaway Saturday in watching the Spurs take care of business? I watched the majority of this game, I would say, and even though OKC did come back and take a quick lead, I believe, in the second or third, I never really felt like they had their stuff going in this game. I thought OKC would win going in, but as I watched the game, I thought, oh, San Antonio is going to be playing in the finals.
Yeah, the Saturday game itself was not all that surprising. As somebody who said I thought the Thunder would win the game, I didn't say that with world of confidence. I didn't bet either side heading in to game number 7. And the thing that I thought would give the Spurs a chance in that game is actually trusting their three-point shooters more. Sometimes in a game 7 where points are so hard to come by, Craig, who can get me loud and somewhat easy baskets? And that was Julian Champagnie making 6 threes in this game. That's, 50% of what the Thunder put up as a team. There was, I think, entering into the third quarter, Champagnie had made 5, and I think all of Oklahoma City had made 7. So you think back to when the Cavs rolled the Pistons in that game 7. They started the game super hot from 3, and they established that base lead. And that's what the Spurs were excellent at, really, in all 7 of the games, was just early starts, fast starts, and getting out in front. And it's what they did again here. You cannot praise this season enough for San Antonio. Of course, they want more. But I think in just eliminating Oklahoma City, it isn't hyperbolic to say Victor Wembanyama has now officially put himself on track to be one of the 10 greatest players in the history of basketball. And you're not being mean or ridiculous to say anything less than that will be disappointing. He should shatter the Defensive Player of the Year records. He should win multiple league MVPs and multiple championships. And a lot of people, Craig, have been pointing to how no one has repeated since Golden State. And the Thunder were this sure bet to do it. And I had heard people kind of caution the OKC hype with, look at Boston, look at Denver, look at Milwaukee. I thought the Thunder were in a completely different class. They were younger, they were better, higher floor, all of that to me. They got hit with a little bit of injury. They ran into Victor Wembanyama. The Thunder may never get back, right? And not just because the Spurs are going to win 5, straight, but the league evolves. But the Spurs, to me, it's not as much about some Spurs dynasty, right? I know we're going to talk about the matchup in a second, but Victor Wembanyama has really now, Craig, put himself in a class of player, the first guy since LeBron, really. Since LeBron made the finals at the same exact age. Like, that's what we are watching and talking about now on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's funny. Years ago, I was told this would be Zion Williamson, and then I was told this would be Luka Doncic, and now we actually have a guy doing it in Victor Wembanyama. Like, the hype was actually real, finally, on a player in the NBA. Okay, so the Spurs are 4.5-point favorites in game 1. Total is 218.5. I've said before, and I could be wrong in reading the line here, but I sort of think the Knicks will end up being 4-point dogs come opening night on Wednesday. I don't think it'll be more than that. And the Spurs are also minus 205 to win the series, which certainly I believe, Kevin, if the Knicks had home court, it'd be a pick'em basically in the series. That's how I think how tight this would be. But you got to make the Spurs a pretty heavy favorite here. They have the home court and get game 7 at home. I mean, come on. And they won on the road, by the way, too, I should mention. So let's start off with game 1 between the Knicks and Spurs, and then go to the series.
So as far as game 1 goes, one book was sitting at 5.5, and for a basketball game, there isn't the same rush, Craig, as maybe, a Super Bowl line or a college football line. But I bet the 5.5 right then and there, because I agree with you, that number felt inflated off of the game 7 hype. Yet I know that the Spurs are going to get a couple of days to rest here, right? Off Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But there's still a rest advantage for the Knicks, who have been in this rust spot and have rotated between incredible comeback victory and just start to finish dominance. And I think the Knicks are going to be ready for this spot. I believe that the Spurs were the only team who could eliminate the Thunder in the postseason. But the Thunder are not the only team who could eliminate the Spurs. And the Knicks are playing the best basketball, statistically, the league's ever seen. Just from and I don't mean like analytically. I mean just like points for me, points for you, gap, Knicks. Like that's just how dominant this stretch has been, Craig. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks continue to roll. Because the Knicks' victories have been so loud, Craig, that for the Spurs, right? The Spurs have lost a couple of games. Some of them they can chalk up to Wemby leaving early with injury or ejection, right? Spot, whatever it might be. If they lose, and I know this will sound crazy to people, but if they lose game one by 15, 20 points, that's rocking. That's not happened to this basketball team here. I do expect the New York Knicks to win this series.
So the favorite to win the MVP, I was reminded. I was thinking of a big man who's won MVP in the NBA Finals, and Jokic is the most recent one there. So that definitely passes the sniff test to me. What I'm going to say, Kevin, and you'll remember it because again I'll be wrong here. But if I end up being right in my 5% chance, you'll say, "Oh my gosh, Craig said it." I think if the Spurs win the championship, that Wemby does not win the MVP. I think somebody else is going to I know it sounds crazy. I think so. I think there'll be a guard or some swingman to win the MVP of the finals. Of course, the Knicks have Jalen Brunson. I'm not going to go away from him, but that's my boldest prediction of the season.
It's very, very bold. You're sitting at 60-1 on Stephon Castle. I would imagine Spurs win, it's not Wemby, would pay in the 20-1 range, and you would just you'd get Knicks if you want. Right.
Have a great show tonight, Kevin. Thanks.
Craig Carton along with Tyrone Johnson. We got great news for you. CraigCartonShow.com. And Tyrone, what do you get if you go to that amazing website?
Well, right now you can subscribe to our upcoming newsletter. You put in your email address, and then bang, you'll get all the new Craig Carton Show content when it arrives.
Not just that, you also get merch drops, exclusive content, and appearances. So again, one more time, that website is CraigCartonShow.com.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of the spring and summer until we get back to football season.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Newswire here on Sports Grid. I have an update here real quick from the Cincinnati Reds. Elly De La Cruz will be placed on the 10-day injured list. I know that's big for the MVP market in the National League. So Elly De La Cruz going on the injured list. Also, news in the NBA. How about the Larry O'Brien Trophy being back on NBA courts? How about that? As you see there, it will be featured once again on the actual court in New York in Madison Square Garden and also in San Antonio, Texas. This was a very popular feature in the 2000s and even about 5-10 years ago. For some reason, it came off, but now it is back, and certainly NBC, who has the finals as well, should be a fun finals between New York and San Antonio, and it begins Wednesday. All right, as we wrap up the show, it's time now to find our favorite predictor of sports and also wrap up the show with a whole lot more. It's time now for some last licks. All right, imagine going 7 for 7 in your parlay bets. That's exactly what this Air Corgi did. For some reason, Air Corgi just constantly knocking down shots and constantly knocking down bets. As you can see here, game 1, game 2, game 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, Corgi knocked them down, all of them. Here, take a look. All right, so Corgi 7 for 7 in the bets. Yesterday or last week, we talked about a dog, unfortunately not being able to be the bat dog. Maybe they should just replace Corgi with this because it seems like Corgi gets everything right. Who knows who Corgi will pick in the finals, but probably get them all right. 7 for 7, cashing the Western Conference order and exacta. How about that? All right, in college baseball, we've had some of the craziest upsets in the NCAA brackets that we've seen in a really long time as we head toward the World Series. These are the regionals. Before last year, no number one national seed had ever failed to reach the final in the NCAA baseball tournament. It now happened in 2 straight seasons. By the way, there's games going on as we speak and all later today and tonight. It's now happened 2 years in a row. Vanderbilt in 2025 as the one, UCLA in 2026 as the one. Wright State beat Vandy last year 5-4. St. Mary's College beat UCLA, one of the favorites to win the entire College World Series, yesterday by a final of 6-5. So now Georgia Tech is the favorite to win the College Baseball World Series, and the Yellow Jackets are really good. Plus 4-1. So how about that? All right, let's get to some baseball news as we wrap up the show. A very bizarre scene unfolding yesterday with Jesus Sanchez, an outfielder of the Toronto Blue Jays. Sanchez yesterday seemingly chatting with a young child in the stands, almost waving to throw him a ball, as it would appear. There was a misunderstanding, apparently, and Sanchez was then hit by a baseball that the young fan threw to have him catch, but Sanchez was not paying attention and it hit him in his throwing hand. Here is John Schneider, the manager of the Jays, on the incident.
Can you tell us about what happened with Jesus Sanchez in right field?
Yeah, never know what you're going to see at the ballpark. He was kind of talking with I think it was a 12-year-old kid, I was just told, talking with a kid, kind of going back and forth, and I think in a playful manner, like almost like, hey, let's play catch. And I think that the kid took it literally and hit Sanchez with the ball. So not ideal. First time I've seen that. X-rays were negative on his wrist, his right wrist. So we'll check him out. But he was pretty sore and surprised, and as were we. Ball shouldn't be coming into the field to play anywhere.
It was kind of tough to see on the video where exactly it got him.
Yeah, it's kind of like right wrist right down here. Below his thumb, so kind of just had trouble squeezing Jose's hand and wanted to get him out of there.
You know what is crazy is that this story is a little wacky, and you wouldn't see anything like this happen in a game. But if you told me and you gave me several names of players that I could see this happening with in baseball, I would have Jesus Sanchez on my list from knowing him here in South Florida. I'm just telling you, Jesus Sanchez. He's a little bit of in a world of his own at times. And so I am surprised, and obviously I don't want to see anybody hurt, but Sanchi, different character. That's all I'll say. All right, that will do it for our show today. Thanks to our guests here on the show, including Kyle Soppe, Pat Evans, and Kevin Walsh. Great job by all. Thanks to Tommy, I believe. Was Tommy directing today on the show here? Okay, thanks to Tommy and Frank on the graphics. And for Chris, I'm Craig. See you back here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great night, everyone.
Craig Carton along with Tyrone Johnson. We got great news for you. CraigCartonShow.com. And Tyrone, what do you get if you go to that amazing website?
Well, right now you can subscribe to our upcoming newsletter. You put in your email address, and then bang, you'll get all the new Craig Carton Show content when it arrives.
Not just that, you also get merch drops, exclusive content, and appearances. So again, one more time, that website is CraigCartonShow.com.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of spring and summer until we get back to football season.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.